I would like to talk a little bit about the changes in America that have occurred over the last 2.5 years. Obviously, everybody's gone through this pandemic, but it's what it's done to the economy that matters. And at the end of the day, it's one of the reasons I'm here, because let's just start with the environment. There's a really, really interesting competition starting between states in America today. Now, maybe it's because of the pandemic, maybe it's because the economy went digital, maybe it's because it's just starting to occur to businesses that there are some states that are pro-business and there are others that are not. Now, very often, entrepreneurs are nervous about calling out a state for being bad at promoting business or having abusive regulation or not having policy from a tax perspective that makes sense. Well, I'm not scared of doing that. New York, terrible for business. New Jersey, terrible for business. Massachusetts, horrifically terrible for business. California is not in business. Now, I say that because I have to make investment decisions all the time, and I'm trying to find places to put capital to work. There's a reason the price of real estate in Miami has gone up 40% in 18 months. It's because everybody that's managing capital in New York and New Jersey and Massachusetts has moved to Miami, and they count their days. And this is a healthy competition between states. This is good. This is good for America. There are good managers and there are bad managers. Talk about what drives the economy today. Number one, clearly what happened during the pandemic digitized the economy forever. And it's very easy to understand what happened. Let's make it really basic. Most people couldn't leave to go get their groceries for almost 18 months without putting a mask on, or if you're an elderly citizen, maybe never getting out because you were worried about getting COVID. Maybe you didn't know how to use your phone to order groceries. Well, you do now. You definitely know how to do it. No question about it. You figured out all the things that you can do digitally. Now that's fantastic. There's no question about it. And I'll tell you why. Prior to the pandemic, I was an investor in 34 separate private companies in almost every state. We were in everything, very diverse. Insecticide, gym equipment, greeting cards, commercial kitchens, cupcake distribution, you name it, wireless charging. And that portfolio of private companies was making about 15% pre-tax. And that, by the way, is running on all systems. That's fantastic. And 66% of our economy are private businesses. It is the entrepreneur. Maybe it was the grandfather that started the business. Maybe it's the first generation right now. But it's that individual with the fire in their belly that wants to be independent and free that starts a business. And that's the kind of entrepreneur that I support because it's good. 50% of sales went through retail. Your Targets, your Bed Bath & Beyond, your Walmarts. And that's 50 cents on the dollar. That's good business. They've got massive distribution. They have DCs everywhere. People go to these stores to buy things. And you make 50 cents on the dollar by the time you take all your costs into account. 40% of sales of most of these companies went through Amazon, which is the largest retailer in the world, more or less direct to consumers, but not your consumers, because they make you give up the right to your consumer data, which is okay trade-off to make 60 cents on the dollar. And prior to the pandemic, these companies made 10% on their own websites direct to consumer. So they had their own data. So if you're selling sneakers like a Nike pre-pandemic and you are about 38% direct consumer, today around the world, that S&P company is well over 50% direct consumer and is no longer reliant on retailers. Size, color, preference, when these sneakers are purchased, all that data floating in the cloud, making the company very powerful in its ability to direct its capital to the right countries, for the right sizes, the right styles. That's what you do with information like that. And I don't care if you're a $50 million company, a $500 million, or a $50 billion company, this data is valuable. I said data. It's very valuable. In fact, data drives the entire economy. Every single sector of the S&P 500. There are 11 sectors of the S&P 500. What it is, it's the new oil. That's what data is. More valuable than anything else. Very important. Now, where do you put the data? Where do you store the data? What has occurred in the last few months in the Ukraine, this horrific outcome that's occurred there, has woken up every sovereign in the world, not to just war and invasion, but about data. Where do you want your data? If you live in Montana, where do you want your data? You want it sitting in Ukraine, where a Russian tank rolls over the data center? I don't think so. Do you want it in a foreign country? No. You want it right on the sovereign soil where it's created. Every single state, every Canadian province, every Mexican province, every Swiss canton, all of these countries are now realizing the value of data and where is it stored? Where is it sovereign? Where is it protected? Where is it safe? Data, data, data. Now, to store data, you need a data center. I don't care if you're in cryptocurrencies or you're doing taxes or you're Tesla, or you're Microsoft, you're Google, you're an advertiser, it doesn't matter, you need a data center. Data centers require semiconductors. Very hard to get. But in the last 18 months, there's something else they require. They need clean power. The world has decided, for good or bad, whether you agree with it or you don't, that ESG really, really matters. And companies that don't abide by a greener future are being punished very harshly in the stock market. And I'll give you a good example. Prior to the ESG mandate put forward by BlackRock, Larry Fink at BlackRock came out with a letter 36 months ago saying, we're the largest money manager on earth, and I want to go green. And companies that don't agree with me, well, they're not going to be part of our mandate. That was a hell of a message. People thought he was kidding. Well, he wasn't. Then the SEC, just 3 months ago, put out a memo saying that they decided that maybe they should audit carbon emissions. In addition to the financial statements, the CEO, the CFO, and the board has to sign the statements, and they've got to find an auditor to sign the statements because people started to use what are called carbon offsets, carbon credits. All of the public companies on NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange that were mining Bitcoin, that were trading in proxy to Bitcoin pricing, which is the granddaddy of all cryptocurrencies, their stocks got crushed, down 50, 60, 70, 80, 95% when that memo came out, because they all use carbon credits. They tie to the grid, they burn coal, they're dirty Bitcoin miners. And they no longer have much of a market cap anymore because not this is law, this is the perception of investors, institutional investors, individual investors. So whether you agree with this or not, it is changing the direction of capital. Start thinking about data, data centers, semiconductors. You've got to solve for a lot of problems and clean power. You build a data center, you're going to pay about $2 million a megawatt. A good data center is 300 megawatts. That's 600 million smackaroos in the ground. You're not going to put that anywhere where the environment's unstable or they don't like business. And I'll give you a good example. I had a project in upstate New York, right beside Niagara Falls. Lots of hydroelectricity, 100% green. 100%. No need for a carbon audit because there's no carbon. Imagine water spilling over a dam, not being used. You can use it to build a data center. What a great idea. New York doesn't like business. They basically put a bill in place saying we're going to make this illegal. We don't want these data centers. Capital stopped flowing there. We moved that facility where? To Norway. Why? They like business in Norway. They want data centers. They have tons of water. And we're building that 300 megawatts in Norway right now. I call it the Norway model, because not only does the government like us, they like the fact that we have investors, the sovereign wealth funds, that have access to semiconductors. They like the fact that we are in partnership with the mayor of that town in northern Norway, that the heat off the computers can actually grow tomatoes with a canning plant we built. And we provide the data centers to universities so they can process information as well. Now, where else can we do that in the world? Where else can we find leadership that likes business, doesn't hate it, that wants to attract it, that has policy that's competitive, that has water and hydroelectricity? Montana. Good leadership in both the senator and the governor. These guys have run businesses. You just have to meet them to understand they know how to read a balance sheet. They know that that matters. And there's all kinds of companies figuring it out. Lifestyle is amazing here. It's a beautiful place. The internet doesn't care where you're located anymore. You can talk to anybody in the world, anywhere, anytime. But when it comes to a data center, which is the reason I'm here, we care about where we build it, we care about the power source, and we care about the stability of the environment. We want policy that we can see at least 7 years ahead. Because when you spend that much money, you need time to get your returns and make sure investors are happy and provide services to all the customers you're going to have. Now, we have this amazing digital economy emerging. Lots of controversy about Bitcoin mining, lots of controversy about stable coins. But I'm here to tell you to think about it this way. This is a nascent sector. Data centers serve everybody. Doesn't matter what sector you're in. Bitcoin miners need them. The digital services need them. Credit card companies need them. It doesn't matter. What matters in a data center is the source of energy and the stability of the policy and the tax regime and the permits that you need to maintain the business. The demand for these centers is insatiable all around the world.